Mr. Lavrov, Mr. Sergey Lavrov, the Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, to the Kingdom of Bahrain and to express our historical and friendly relations between our two countries. These relations are based on the mutual respect and coordinated efforts and cooperation in the interest of both countries and peoples of those countries. His Majesty King Hamad bin Isan Al Khalifa, the King of Bahrain, and also the Crown Prince Al Khalifa, the Crown Prince and Prime Minister, received Mr. Lavrov. And Mr. Lavrov greeted His Majesty and passed on the words of President Putin, and the parties agreed to cooperate, to work together. His Majesty, the King, and Mr. Lavrov talked about the problems around the Ukrainian crisis, and His Majesty underscored that the settlement of this conflict is in the interest of two friendly neighboring countries and also in the interest of Europe. The parties also underscored the importance of the political dialogue to resolve this issue and to achieve a peace on the continent. And it will help to save the lives of the people. And also, they talked about aiding the refugees, and His Majesty also thanked for the attitude, the stance, the relations of the Russian Federation with Bahrain, and underscored the necessity to continue to coordinate the efforts and work together for the interests of both countries. Also, Crown Prince and Prime Minister Salman bin Hamad Al Khalifa received Mr. Sergey Lavrov, and the parties agreed to work together to cooperate and to develop the potential of the bilateral relations in international and regional matters. And also they talked about the Ukrainian settlement and underscored to continue to explore all aspects to develop the relations in all sectors, especially in trade, in the economic sector, in investment, to improve the trade and investment between our two countries. Also, I have had a meeting with His Excellency Minister, where we discussed how we should develop our bilateral ties. To achieve further improvement and progress of our relations, we also discussed topics of mutual interest, such as the Palestinian matter, situation in Yemen, nuclear program in Iran, and the Iranian matters and issues. And we also agreed to continue to look for the solution, to promote the solution of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. And also we had on the agenda the developments in the Ukrainian situation, on how it could be resolved, how this conflict could be resolved, and how we can bring back peace and security to the European continent. We underscored the stance of the Kingdom of Bahrain that is based on the security and peaceful approach to the resolving crisis in Ukraine and in the European continent as well, to open safe humanitarian corridors to receive humanitarian aid and to help the refugees. Once again, welcome Minister Lavrov. Once again, I would like to express my deep gratitude for strengthening of our mutual bilateral relations, and I wish you fruitful events further on. So the floor is yours. I would like to give the floor to Minister Lavrov Foreign Minister of the Russian Federation, for his introduction speech. Your friend, Minister, ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to once again sincerely thank our Bahraini friends for wonderful, warm-hearted welcome and for the extended to our delegation here in Bahrain. I would like to talk about the meeting with His Majesty King Hamad. It was dedicated to the strategic review of our relations, including based on those contacts that took place in previous years between His Majesty and the President of the Russian Federation, and also considering the phone conversation that took place this March between the leaders of Russia and Bahrain, and during which they discussed in principle the entire range of our relations and, of course, the situation in the international arena. And we have held a very fruitful meeting with the Crown Prince, with the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bahrain. And today we continued to talk with my counterpart, with my friend, the Foreign Minister. In the early April of this year, we have already met in Moscow, where we have held frank and very fruitful dialogue, and the number of the meetings that we have now underlines the necessity, the need to keep in contact, to compare notes, and to look for opportunities to develop our relations in these ever-changing conditions. Today we have talked about our trade and economic cooperation. The trade turnover is increasing, is growing, but the figures are very small. Neither our friends nor Russian economic operators are not happy, are not satisfied with those. We have agreed on a number of areas where we will promote our joint efforts in industrial development and transport infrastructure and pharmaceuticals. We have agreed to use more actively the capabilities of Intergovernmental Commission of Russia and Bahrain on trade, economic, and scientific cooperation that plans to have next meeting here in Manama this year. And of course, we expressed our satisfaction with how our agencies and departments, Russian Fund of Direct Investments and Abdullatif, are promoting their investment cooperation. Our Bahraini friends have have doubled their input into the joint investment platform, which is a very important step, and I'm sure that it is going to yield good results. We have agreed to develop the exchange of delegations to give another impetus to direct contact between businesses and enterprises. We have talked about possible projects to implement together in third countries. We value very much our humanitarian ties, scientific and educational cooperation in Russian higher education institutions. We have about 100 students from Bahrain, mostly in medical colleges, and we have reaffirmed our willingness to expand the number of the places in those institutions for our Bahraini friends. And the plans are quite promising to implement mutual cultural projects, including the Days of Russian Culture in Manama that is planned for this year, bilateral forum of diversity of cultures, the foundation as the basis for dialogue, having the so-called Museum Roadshow here in Bahrain, and holding a festival of Russian cinema. I'm sure that all these events, all these activities will cause a lot of interest among our peoples and will facilitate the development of contacts between people. We have agreed on a number of areas to take measures to finalize drafting the agreements that will strengthen our legal base. And we also talked about the current developments, current agenda. We stay in close contact. We carry out consultations on a wide range of matters. Yesterday and today we have talked about the situation in the Middle East and in the north of Africa. First of all, we talk about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict and failure to settle this for decades have been creating the hotbed of tensions, which is causing concerns again due to the recent events in Palestine, including in Jerusalem. And we also talked about the need to renew direct talks between Palestinians and the Israeli. We have the legal basis for that. We have our peaceful initiative for that has been supported by everyone, including by the UN. And we see how relevant, how important, how essential it is now to increase the efforts using the mediators and facilitators from the League of Arab States so that we could create all necessary conditions to renew such dialogue and to resume such dialogue and to continue to look for the two-state solution on this issue. And as our Bahraini counterparts and other friends from the Gulf, we are concerned by the existing problem of the Palestinian unity or of the lack of thereof. We do a lot to help the Palestinians to overcome this divide, which is going to serve the interest to create all the necessary conditions to start serious talks on the settlement. We have also talked about the situation in Syria, about the need to implement the resolution of the UN Security Council number 2254. We talked about the efforts carried out by Russia to promote achieving this goal within the Astana format as well, along with our partners from Iran and Turkey. We also talked about how we aim to create the fruitful conditions for the drafting committee, constitutional committee, where the delegations from the government and the opposition are talking about the future of their country. We also talked about many other aspects of the Syrian crisis, but I would like to mention here that largely these problems will be resolved more efficiently if the Syria will be reinstituted to the Arab family in the League of the Arab States, and we have overlapping similar positions, similar stance in this regard, and we will continue to encourage this kind of attitude. We talked about the situation in the Gulf, in the wider context as well, from the point of view of building security, strong security here for the Arab states of the Gulf and for the Islamic Republic of Iran. Russia has been promoting such security concept based on the collective efforts for many years now. How a year ago we have updated this document. We had a number of meetings with the experts from all the countries of the Gulf. We are going to continue this work because we want to see stability, peace, mutual trust reigning supreme here, and we have a concept of concrete measures to be taken in this direction. And in this regard, we have also talked about how Russia is participating in the efforts to resume the joint comprehensive plan of actions regarding the Iranian nuclear program. We faced certain obstacles in this regard, first of all, because of the stance taken by the United States of America that are trying to bargain additional conditions, thus changing the original idea, the original content of the JCPOA, which was endorsed by the Security Council. Our position is this: it would be just to resume JCPOA without any additional demands. We also talked about the situation in Yemen, and in this regard as well, our positions in the support of the efforts carried out under the UN aegis, and which recently got another positive impetus because of the initiative of the Saudi Arabia and because of the truce that was announced. Hopefully it will be extended further on. And we also talked in detail about the situation in Ukraine. By the request of our friends, we informed them about the latest developments. We also talked about the situation regarding food security. We talked about the measures taken by the Russian side for more than a month now, guaranteeing the freedom of movement for the vessels to take out the grain that is being blocked in Ukrainian ports now. But to do that, we need Ukrainian representatives to demine the coastal waters, territorial waters of Ukraine that were mined, like I said. If this problem of demining will be resolved, and we have been trying to draw attention of all the concerned Western counterparts to that, then in open seas, like I said, Russian Navy will provide free movement of these vessels to the Mediterranean Sea and then further on to their destinations. So the initiatives about the food security, they must be resolved with keeping in mind that on the Russian side, we have guaranteed everything that depended on us. But as for the Western countries that have created a lot of artificial problems by closing their ports for the Russian ships, by disrupting logistic and financial chains, so they should think in earnest what is more important to them. Just trying to store a PR campaign by pretending to resolve matters or actually work to resolve these problems. And obviously, His Majesty and the Crown Prince and my counterpart and my friend, they expressed an interest to our common analysis of the situation in the European continent, in a wider context, in the international arena as well. And our friends, they have this understanding that the Ukrainian crisis reflects much wider processes, and we share the information about the efforts taken by our country, well, the last 15 years for sure, to provide security, reliable security in the European continent and in the European Atlantic region. And we also talked about the results of our numerous efforts, numerous initiatives aimed at the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and to the United States directly. And unfortunately, regrettably, they did not get the serious, respectable consideration or reaction. And this situation showed the intention of our Western partners to work not based on the equality, not based on the principles of the UN Charter, including the principle of the respect for the sovereign equality of the states, but they want to dictate their will. They want to work on their infallible conviction that they have a certain goal and they have a mission to rule the world. And now they are promoting unipolar world order. That's why we are going to continue to defend the principles of international law, principles of the UN Charter that are now being violated by our Western counterparts. So instead of the international law, they are promoting this concept of the rule-based world order in accordance with which the West wants to make all the decisions, and NATO is playing the role of the global police officers, policemen, so they are not a defensive alliance. They are providing global security, and also they now want to go to the Pacific region. They talk about containing the Chinese People's Republic openly, Russia, obviously, as well. And this rule-based world order also has the United States reigning supreme over everyone. So I think the dialogue in this regard is very important, and those platforms, political platforms that exist in the world and that are interested in promoting the dialogue, mutually respectful dialogue, to look for consensus, to look for compromise, they are more and more in demand than what Munich Conference on Security has degraded into, that has become a platform to manifest Western concepts and theories. And in this regard, we see the important role played by the Manama dialogue, a traditional platform, the goal of which is in bringing parties closer together, bridging the gaps between the people who represent different points of view, different stances, and look for the balance of interests, which is also the gist of the Russian foreign policies. And we are grateful to our friends from Bahrain for their balanced, sensible reasonable stance, not aimed at confrontation, not aimed at increasing the tensions, but aimed at reaching results along the entire range of all the matters we talked about. Once again, I'm sincerely grateful for welcoming us at such a great level. Thank you. Thank you for your speech. Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you.